His single mom opened the door in a towel. I just came to return some headphones. Subscribe to the channel for more stories. It was one of those Saturdays that stretched on languidly, where time itself seemed to slow down. I was lounging around my apartment, scrolling aimlessly on my phone, when I saw a missed call from Ethan. He had forgotten his headphones at my place after we hung out the night before and was hoping I could bring them over. It was no big deal, so I found them on my table and shot him a text letting him know I was on my way. His house wasn't far, just a simple drive across town. I knew his mother, Monica, was a single mom who was often home, but she was a quiet person who mostly kept to herself, often resting in her room. I'd never given her much thought beyond acknowledging that she was very attractive for a woman in her early 40s. To me, she had always been simply Ethan's mom, nothing more. So when I knocked, I fully expected Ethan to answer. Instead, it was her. She opened the door wearing nothing but a towel, her hair still damp from the shower. She looked a little startled, but there was no trace of shame in her expression. I didn't know where to put my eyes, so my gaze darted away almost immediately. The atmosphere felt so tense you could practically feel its weight. "Hey, Jordan," she said, her lips curving into a smile. "Ethan just stepped out for a little while. What brings you by?" I fumbled over my words for a moment before holding up the headphones like a peace offering. "I was just dropping these off. I didn't realize you'd be in the middle of something." A soft laugh escaped her as she tucked a wet strand of hair behind her ear. "Oh, I'm not busy," she replied with an easy nonchalance. "Just got out of the shower. Do you want to come in and wait?" I hesitated for a second, unsure if it was a good idea, but I stepped inside anyway. She wasn't a stranger, of course, but this felt different. I had only ever seen her as a composed, motherly figure. I never imagined feeling this sort of pull toward her. We sat in the living room, and after she got me a drink, the conversation started off light. But as we talked, I noticed her opening up in ways I never anticipated. She spoke about her life, about how things change, and about the profound loneliness one can feel even when not truly alone. For a little while, it didn't feel like I was talking with my best friend's mother at all. It was just her and me, sharing an honest, unguarded moment. And the way she watched me as I spoke suggested she was truly interested in what I had to say. That's when something inside me shifted. I started to see her in a new light. There was so much more to her than just being Ethan's mom. She then offered a soft, almost mysterious smile. "Jordan, you've grown up so much. It's hard to believe," she said. "I remember when you and Ethan were just little boys running around this house. I didn't know how to respond, so I just managed a small nod. There was a new kind of charge between us, something unvoiced but powerfully present. I could feel a spark, a quiet tension, though I wasn't sure what it meant. What I didn't know was that I wasn't ready to leave." She stood and walked toward the kitchen, and I found myself following. As she passed, I caught the fresh, delicate scent she carried from her shower. For a brief moment, the title of Ethan's mom faded completely. She was just a woman, an individual with her own story and her own needs. "Thank you for stopping by," she said, turning to face me. "I really needed someone to talk to today." I gave her a small smile, a pleasant warmth spreading through my chest. "Anytime," I said. Even as I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed between us. An unspoken connection had taken root, and I had no idea where it might go. The next time I saw Monica, it was completely unplanned. I was at the grocery store picking up a few things for dinner when we crossed paths in an aisle. She was holding a jar of marinara sauce, examining the label with a delicate frown. For some reason, that simple image struck me. How had I never noticed how naturally lovely she was? It wasn't just her appearance. It was the way she carried herself with a quiet confidence, as if she possessed a secret knowledge the rest of us lacked. I hadn't expected to see her, and frankly, I was unsure how to react. We hadn't spoken since that bizarre morning with the towel and the headphones, but something about that day resonated with me. Something about her smile and the way she had looked at me lingered in my mind. I had tried to dismiss it as a one-time strange event until she looked up and our eyes met. "Jordan," she murmured, her voice calm and inviting. It was the kind of voice that instantly put you at ease. I smiled back, try my best to seem casual. Monica. Didn't expect to see you here. She gestured to her cart. Just grabbing a few things for dinner. It was a simple question, but it bloomed into a full conversation. We talked about food, the weather, and other light subjects, but underneath it all, there was the thrum of something deeper. A subtle but palpable tension hung between us, communicated through small glances and quiet smiles. Then, unexpectedly, she asked, "Are you doing anything tonight?" She said it casually, as if the answer didn't matter, but I could tell she was testing the waters. I wasn't sure how to respond. "Not much," I shrugged. "Just laying low at home." A faint smile touched her lips. "Ethan is out with his friends tonight. I was thinking of making dinner. You should come over. It would be nice to have some company." That offer caught me completely by surprise. My first instinct was to politely decline. After all, besides Ethan, what do we really have to talk about? But the way she asked made it hard to say no. Before I could overthink it, I heard myself saying, "Yeah, sure," and that was that. I had no idea what I was walking into. Later that evening, as I drove back to her house, a nervous energy buzzed in my chest. When I arrived, the house felt as warm and familiar as ever. The scent of a home-cooked meal filled the air, wrapping the space in an almost overwhelmingly welcoming embrace. Monica was already in the kitchen, humming softly to herself as she stirred something on the stove. I stood in the doorway, just watching her for a moment. That's when it hit me. The woman before me didn't feel like the Monica I thought I knew. She looked the same, yet something about her presence felt more genuine, more open. "Go ahead and have a seat," she said over her shoulder. "Dinner is almost ready." I sat at the kitchen table, trying to appear relaxed. She moved around the kitchen with an effortless grace, as if she belonged there in every sense of the word. Meanwhile, I sat there trying to make sense of the feelings churning inside me. It wasn't just about how she looked or how at ease she seemed. It was about how she made me feel like I was more than just her son's friend. We ate, and the conversation flowed. There were no stilted silences or forced pleasantries. We talked about life and the way things rarely unfold the way you plan. She spoke about her younger days and how she missed the thrill of spontaneity, the feeling of being excited about the unknown. She admitted that since becoming a single mom, and with Ethan being out more, her life had settled into a predictable pattern. Her voice was raw when she said it, as if she'd been holding back for years, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I just listened. I didn't offer any wise advice or profound insights. I just nodded and let her speak. And as I sat there, I noticed things, the way her eyes lit up when she was passionate about a topic, the genuine sound of her laugh. She was no longer just Ethan's mom. She was a woman. She had her own thoughts, her own feelings, her own life. "Thank you," I said as we finished eating and I started to help clear the table. She smiled at me, and for a fleeting moment, I saw something deeper in her gaze. "I'm so glad you came over," she said. It's been a long time since I had a real conversation with anyone. I didn't know what to say, so I just gave a small nod, but I knew we were both thinking the same thing. There was a shift between us, something we didn't need to acknowledge out loud. When I got up to leave, she hugged me. It was simple, warm, and comfortable, but her hand lingered on my back for a beat too long, and that small moment stayed with me. "Take care, Jordan," she whispered. My mind was reeling as I walked my car. The evening had seemed so ordinary, yet it had loosened something inside me. I couldn't put my finger on it. She hadn't done anything overtly inappropriate, but the way she looked at me, the way she listened, it made me feel like there was something real between us, a different kind of connection. I had been to Ethan's house 100 times, but this felt different, and I hated how much I thought about it in the days that followed. I tried to push it from my mind, to act like nothing had happened. A few days later, Ethan called and asked if I wanted to grab a drink. I figured getting out would help clear my head, but as soon as I walked into the bar, I saw her. Monica was sitting at the counter with a few of her friends. She noticed me, smiled, and waved. Without thinking, I waved back. Her smile was relaxed, but it held a warmth that hadn't been there before, an unspoken something that made my stomach flutter. "Hey, Jordan," she said as I walked over. I didn't expect to see you here tonight. I shrugged, trying to play it cool. Just hanging out with Ethan. I didn't know you'd be here. She let out a light laugh. Yeah, catching up with some old friends. I haven't had a night out in a while. Her gaze held mine for a second longer than necessary. And just like that, the tension was back, that subtle undercurrent humming between us, always just beneath the surface. I should have backed away, said good night, and found Ethan, but I didn't. Instead, I sat down next to her. We talked and laughed, pretending there was nothing strange about any of it. Eventually, Ethan arrived and joined us. The three of us sat there, talking about school, old memories, and the silly things we used to do. Even with the chatter all around me, my mind kept drifting. Every time Monica looked my way, I felt it, that shift, that something. Her laugh, her glances, they stirred a reaction in me I didn't fully understand. We both felt like we were holding a secret that neither of us dared to name. At one point, Ethan got up to grab another round, leaving just the two of us at the table. I hadn't planned to say anything, but the words just came out. So, Monica, how have you really been? She paused. Her smile faded slightly, and for a moment, I saw something raw in her eyes. I'm okay, she said quietly. Just feeling a little lonely lately. Her honesty caught me off guard. It was as if she peeled back a layer, revealing someone I hadn't expected, someone who wasn't just Ethan's strong single mom. Yeah, I replied, nodding. I get that. It's not always easy. She gave a quiet nod in return, and we sat in silence for a few moments. It wasn't awkward. It was strangely peaceful. I wanted to say more, to offer some comfort, but the words wouldn't come. So I just looked at her, wondering if she was hinting at something deeper. Ethan returned with our drinks, and the moment passed. But something inside me had moved. That night, my perception of Monica changed for good. She no longer felt like just a friend's parent. There was a different kind of light around her now, a dangerous one. Later, when we all decided to leave, I walked with Ethan to his car, but my thoughts were stuck on that brief conversation with her. What exactly did she mean by lonely? Was it simple boredom, or was she gently asking for something more? As soon as I got home, I collapsed onto my couch and replayed the entire night in my head. That dinner had been a confession. That look in her eyes, that was when I realized this wasn't just some random sequence of events. There was something else happening between us, something unspoken. And whether I wanted to admit it or not, I was being drawn into it. The scariest part was I wasn't sure I wanted to resist anymore. The following few days felt heavy. I couldn't stop thinking about the bar and Monica's quiet admission. Her gaze had seemed to search mine for something. There was a weight in the air between us that I couldn't shake, no matter how hard I tried. I kept telling myself it meant nothing, that it was just a strange phase. But I knew better. Ethan and I had always been close. He was my best friend, but lately, even when we were hanging out, I'd find my thoughts drifting back to her. I hated that about myself. Hated the thoughts that refused to go away. The way she smiled, the way she carried herself. She felt different now. That Saturday, I decided I had to clear my head. I called Ethan and suggested we go shoot some hoops at the park like old times. Maybe if I moved my body, I could quiet my mind. When I got to the court, Ethan was already there, practicing his shot. He looked up and grinned when he saw me. About time he showed up, he joked, passing me the ball. I forced a smile. Had to take care of something. We played hard for the next hour, joking and talking trash, but my mind wasn't in the game. It was somewhere else entirely, somewhere warm, soft, and confusing. After a while, we took a break, sitting on the edge of the court. You think my mom is doing okay? Ethan asked suddenly, wiping sweat from his brow. The question threw me. What do you mean? I asked. She's just been distant lately, he said, staring at the pavement. Not herself. I don't know if she's stressed or what, but something feels off. I think she's going through something that hit harder than I expected. I'd always seen Monica as this steady, composed presence, never shaken. But maybe I was wrong. I don't know, I said, keeping my voice even. Have you talked to her about it? He shook his head. Not really. Every time I try, she just brushes it off. I don't want to push, but I can tell she's not okay. I wasn't sure what to say. A part of me wanted to come clean, to tell him about the shift I'd felt in her and in myself. But I couldn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Maybe she just needs some space? I offered, trying to sound casual. Yeah, maybe, he mumbled, but I could hear the doubt in his voice. We finished our game and headed back to his place. My gut was tight the whole way, as if I were walking towards something I couldn't stop. We walked through the front door, and there she was. Monica was sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine. She looked up when we came in, her smile perfectly pleasant, as if everything was normal. Hi, you too, she said, but I could see it, the fatigue in her eyes, the slight rigidity in her posture. I realized she was playing a part. Hey, Mom, Ethan said, dropping onto the couch beside her. You doing all right? Monica paused for a fraction of a second before nodding. Yeah, just been a long week. I could tell she was deflecting. I didn't challenge her, mostly because I wouldn't know how. My heart was pounding louder than I wanted to admit. So I retreated to the kitchen, needing a moment to breathe, to escape the weight in the room. But as I reached for a glass, I heard footsteps behind me. Monica was standing in the doorway, her arms crossed. Jordan, she said quietly, her voice calm but direct. Can we talk for a minute? I turned, caught off guard. Yeah. What's up? She stepped into the kitchen, closing the door softly behind her. The space between us shrank, and I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to thank you for the other night, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. It meant a lot to me. I swallowed hard, her words hitting with unexpected force. Of course, I replied. You know I'm here if you ever need to talk, she nodded slowly. And for a moment, we stood in a dense, heavy silence that buzzed with everything we weren't saying. Then, almost as if to change the subject, she said, Ethan's a great kid. You know, for all he's been through, he has such a kind heart. I nodded again, unsure where this was going. But her gaze stayed on me for an extra beat. That same spark I'd felt before was back, humming between us like an overstretched wire. Yeah, I said quietly. He really does, she smiled, but there was something else in that smile I couldn't quite place. I wondered if she was thinking what I was thinking. For a fleeting second, I considered asking her right then and there what was happening between us, but I didn't. I just stood there, caught in the quiet with her, wondering what came next. Finally, she broke the spell with a soft, "Thank you again, Jordan." I responded, "Anytime," but a part of me knew I wasn't saying it in the same way anymore. A week passed after that night in the kitchen. The conversation hadn't been dramatic, but it lingered with me. Every time I saw Monica after that, the air felt different, charged. I couldn't tell if she felt it too, or if I was just projecting, but the dynamic between us had undeniably shifted. Ethan and I hung out as usual, and he seemed oblivious, but it didn't help. Every time Monica walked into the room, my eyes followed her. I noticed the little things, the way her head tilted when she spoke, the way her eyes met mine for just a second too long. It was subtle, almost invisible, but I saw it. I felt it. Then came Saturday. Ethan had plans with his friends, so I found myself at their place, waiting for him to get ready to leave. It wasn't what I'd expected, but I didn't mind. The truth was, I needed the quiet. I needed space to process the turmoil in my head and my gut. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when I heard her voice from the hallway. Jordan. I looked up, surprised to see her standing there, her expression unreadable. Hey, I said, trying to sound casual, but my heart was already picking up its pace. She walked into the room, paused, and then asked, "Can we talk?" That simple question made my stomach clench. Yeah, of course, I said, setting my phone aside. She came over and sat next to me on the couch. We weren't touching, but the space between us was electric. The room felt smaller. I've been thinking about our conversations lately, she began, her voice soft and careful. And I think I owe you an apology. I stared at her, caught completely off guard. This was not where I thought this was going. I know, I've been a little distant, she explained, saying she'd been dealing with some things and hadn't meant to put any of it on me. I blinked, trying to read her expression. It's fine, I finally managed. You don't have to apologize. She gave me a warm smile, but something in her eyes told me there was more she wasn't saying. I appreciate that, she replied, but I think I might have crossed a line with you. My heart skipped a beat. This was the moment I'd been both dreading and, if I was honest, quietly hoping for. I had no idea where it would lead, but I couldn't stop myself from hearing her out. What do you mean? I asked, my voice softer now. Monica took a deep breath, looking down at her hands. I think you know, she said gently. There's been something between us, and I can't keep pretending it doesn't exist. I froze. Her words hit me squarely in the chest, harder than I had anticipated. Of course, I had felt it, but hearing her say it out loud made it real, palpable, and terrifying. I'm not trying to make things awkward, Jordan, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I'm not sure how to handle this. But I can't keep pretending nothing is happening. I looked at her, my mind racing. Every rational part of me was screaming that this was wrong, that I shouldn't be here. And yet I was. I don't want it to be weird, either, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But I don't know what you want me to say. She met my gaze then, direct and unwavering. We sat in a heavy silence, thick with everything we couldn't articulate. Then she reached out. Her hand brushed against mine, a touch so light it was barely there, but it sent a jolt through me. My breath hitched. This isn't just a crush, Jordan, she whispered, her eyes locked on mine. I'm not sure what this is, but I can't ignore it anymore. And I don't want a wave of emotions washed over me. Guilt, curiosity, desire, fear. I was acutely aware of the risks, of what could happen if anyone ever found out. But I also knew the connection between us was powerful, and a part of me didn't want it to stop. Are you sure? I asked, my voice wavering. About whatever this is? She nodded, her fingers curling firmly around mine. I'm sure. And with that, the line we had been so carefully dancing around vanished. We said nothing more. There was nothing left to say. But the air had changed. We both felt the shift, the weight of what we had just acknowledged. Everything was different after that. It's been a year since that night. A year of keeping a secret. A year of balancing the normalcies of life with the quiet, stolen moments we carved out for ourselves. In some ways, it feels like we've lived an entire lifetime in that time. We never talked much about what we were. What began that night? She answered the door in a towel hadn't faded. It had simply woven itself into the fabric of our lives. It felt strangely natural, but it was also fragile, something we guarded fiercely. We agreed on one thing from the start. Our happiness mattered. And that happiness was built on a trust that allowed us to be completely vulnerable with each other while remaining hidden from the world. We had built our own little world, a pocket universe where things were real. But the guilt never fully disappeared. Every time I saw Ethan, a small part of my conscience would pinch. Not because I thought he deserved to know, but because carrying a secret this large always leave a mark. Still, I never once second-guessed the choice we made. We both made it, and no matter how complicated things got, it always felt right. Monica and I saw each other whenever we could, not too often. We never pushed the boundaries. We kept everything discreet, quiet, and out of sight. The hardest part was the performance. Ethan would be there, smiling and oblivious, and we would keep our hands to ourselves, acting as if we were nothing more than his mother and his friend. But those small moments, the quick glance across the room, the subtle smile, the fleeting touch of our hands when no one was looking, they became our language. They were what held us together. When we were alone in her house, we'd sometimes talk about what might happen if the truth ever came out. We never had a solid plan, just hazy possibilities. We tried not to dwell on it, choosing instead to live in the present, in the quiet spaces where we didn't have to justify ourselves to anyone, where we could simply be. It was a calm Saturday evening, about a year after our relationship began. I was back at Monica's house, sitting on the same couch where it all started. The house was quiet. Ethan was out with his friends, so we had the place to ourselves again. Everything felt normal now, comfortable in a way that had once been so foreign. We had learned to live like this, quietly, carefully, and connected. The relationship had settled into something stable, something real. It was unconventional, yes, but it had become something I couldn't imagine giving up. Monica sat beside me, looking as beautiful as ever, but there was a softness to her now, an ease in her posture that hadn't been there before. We had learned to carry the weight of what we had. "Do you ever think about how we got here?" she asked, her voice warm and low, breaking the silence. I smiled, leaning back into the cushions. "All the time," I admitted. I still can't believe we've made it this long. I looked over at her, the old sense of disbelief now replaced with something like gratitude. It doesn't feel like a year, she said with a soft laugh, resting her head on my shoulder. It doesn't, right? She murmured. But at the same time, it feels like this was always our home. Like this was meant to happen. I nodded slowly, my hand finding hers. Yeah, it's weird, I said, but it's the good kind of weird. I never expected my life to look like this. But now that I'm here, I wouldn't change a thing. She tilted her head, meeting my gaze with that same look that always seemed to make the world stand still. Me neither, she replied softly. Given the circumstances, I think we've done pretty well. I'm glad we kept it between us, her voice was firm. It's ours. It's just ours. And she was right. That was the most important part. This wasn't about anyone else. This was something we had built quietly and together. I'm happy, I replied softly, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. We're happy. That's what counts. We didn't say much after that. We didn't need to. We just sat there, side by side, wrapped in a silence that didn't need filling. A year had passed, a whole year spent hiding in plain sight. We had somehow made it work. We had kept the secret. We had protected what we had. And through it all, we had held on to what mattered most, each other. As the evening wore on and the sky outside grew dark, one thought was perfectly clear in my mind. This was how I wanted things to stay. It wasn't perfect. It was messy, strange, and complicated, but it was ours.